Peace, King. How you feeling? Can you hear me?
What's happening? Yeah, man, I can hear you. Can you hear me on my end?
Oh yeah, most def. First and foremost, man, I want to thank you for coming on the platform. It's truly an honor. Man, you definitely made musical history. You got a song that's cemented in a lot of people's minds. You know what I'm saying? When we hear that record, you know what I'm saying? It takes us back to a special place, a special time. You know what I'm saying? So I just
Mm-hmm.
want to thank you. You know what I'm saying?
No, thanks for having me on, man. And I'm assuming I see the last name, so you're gonna have to pronounce it for me. The first name is Tay. I'm assuming, right?
It's Taye
Ta
Uhuru. It's a name that I chose for myself. Taye Uhuru.
Taye Uhuru. Okay, perfect, Taye, man.
Yeah,
Definitely
yeah.
pleasure being
Oh,
on.
oh yeah. I appreciate you, King. I mean, for the viewers that may not recognize you, let them know who you
Yeah.
are, and definitely let them know where you from.
Yeah, for sure, man. For those who don't know, obviously I go by the name of Mims. That's my professional stage name. You probably remember records like this, "Move If You Wanna," and then one of my biggest records to date was a record called "This Is Why I'm Hot" that I released in 2006, which became the number one record in the country around 2007. So I've been able to like tour the world, see the world, and just be a part of this magical thing called the music industry or music business.
Man, that's amazing. Speaking of touring the world, man, I'm in Dubai right now. It's about 2 a.m.
Nice, nice, man. I spent a lot of time in Dubai, man. So, is that where you are you stationed there now? Like, do you stay there or are you on vacation?
I'm on vacation, man. I'm a world traveler. I've been to about 70 countries, so I'm always bouncing around. So that's why on my side it look kind of crazy, but once I edit it, I'm gonna crop my side out. You know what I'm
Okay,
saying?
you got it, you got it. That's what's
Yeah,
up, man.
just
Dubai is a
kicking
good
it.
place, man. How you
Yeah,
enjoying it?
it's real cool. I've been here a couple times. I mean, I think it's an amazing experience. I'm from America. I'm a Black American, but a lot of our people, man, they don't even get to leave the city, let alone the
Yeah,
state or the country. So.
no, it's a beautiful thing, man. Just to get to see other cultures and how people live. And Dubai is one of those places that, oddly enough, only like 10% of the population over there are actual Emirati. So like even when you're in Dubai, you can kind of get hit with a lot of different culture being out there. So I spend a lot of time there as well, but I always appreciate it. It's a little bit of a, I like to say it's like a mix between a Vegas and like a Miami. But obviously, with its Islamic background, like culture, you get a lot of that culture out there. So anything from Eastern Europeans to Muslims. Uh, so it's a lot of stuff going on in Dubai. I always love it when I go there.
Yeah, man, you hit it right on the head. It's very diverse, man. And I was gonna ask you because, I was definitely doing my research on you. Now, you done toured all around the world. You even got a chance to tour in Africa and Sudan.
Hmm.
What was that experience like? I mean, outside of the fact that you're doing what you love to do, but just getting to see and rock crowds and places like that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Sudan. Sudan was actually a really special concert for me because uh, and I know obviously we see a lot of these places in the news, especially different nations in Africa in the news. Sudan being one of them because there's always obviously some sort of a civil disruption going on in that country. And I was doing a peace concert for them, so I had to get invitation in from the government from the to be allowed to actually perform there. So I was one of the first hip hop artists to do a public concert in Sudan. The first, from what I was told, the first to do a public concert in Sudan and be granted that permission. So, um, what I loved about being, cause obviously I've done Tanzania, I've done Nigeria, um, done different countries in Africa, but I when I was young, what I was told is that when we look at especially my age demographic, um, that Africa was like this uncivilized world where people were running around with spears and like the way it was always presented to me as a child. was depicted really negatively. And then when you get to go to these countries and you get to see how inviting the people are, and the fact that they look really look like us, um, it starts to open your mind to say, man, like all the stuff that I've been told in history class may not have been presented the right way. So to see it in person is a whole different blessing, man. So yeah, I love that the Sudan show itself, but for me, the experience of actually being in Sudan, um, performing for the people, meeting the people, eating the food, seeing the culture, on that's something can't be replicated any other day or any other time for sure.
Wow, that's amazing. And like you said, you got to go to Nigeria and Tanzania. Man, Africa got more countries than any other continent. It's almost 60 different nations in Africa. You know what I'm saying? But we usually generalize it as this one monolithic place, but it's actually the most diverse continent on Earth, not just for humans, but for animals, dinosaurs, plants, wildlife. You feel?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Let me see. Now I wanted to ask you. I wanted to take it back. Now, to my understanding, your parents are from Jamaica.
Yeah. So my father's side of the family, I can't really speak too much on because my mother side of the family took care of me when I was a child. Um, if I was to say both my parents were from Jamaica, I'd be lying. But the side that raised me and the culture that raised me, they're from Jamaica. So I was the first. Me and my brother were the first generations of Americans in my family. Um, so yeah, I mean, obviously growing up, you get that Jamaican culture, of way of thinking and learning on the grow up. So yeah, shout to all the Jamaicans that are checking in.
Oh yeah, no doubt, man. That's a I don't even know how to describe it. It's an island, but it's had such a tremendous impact on world history and music in particular. So I mean, just having some Jamaican ancestry and growing up in New York, how did you
Yeah.
get exposed to hip hop? Was it something that you seen on TV, or was it something people in your family was doing, or did you like a lot of the rappers they be like we went to the park jams and we was break dancing? How
Yeah.
did you come about?
So I want to touch on the first thing you said about this small tiny island in the middle of the Caribbean, being so impactful and influential. What I like to say is that when you think about the likes of people like a Bob Marley or any of the older ones that came, like the Barris Hammonds and all the older entertainers, the dope thing about reggae music is that it's actually you know, we talk about the likes of people like Malcolm X, Martin Luther King for being a major part in helping during the segregation era and helping, to convince the world that African Americans deserve equal rights. But I always like to say too, when you think about what music has done to impact that 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 uh, path, it's a beautiful thing. So for you to go to somewhere like a Sweden and hear them singing a Bob Marley tune, you know that without a doubt, reggae music and Jamaican culture has been responsible for really tearing down a lot of those barriers that have existed. So number one, I feel like when you talk about reggae music, and you talk about music in general, but just even reggae music and its influence on all types of people and genres, then you have to kind of pay homage to that, even when it comes to hip hop, right? So, some of the forefathers and founding fathers of hip hop were actually of Jamaican descent, um, especially growing up here in New York. If you talk about the Bronx being the birthplace of hip hop, then you know for a fact if you've been to the Bronx that you're gonna run into a few different people. You're gonna run into your Jamaicans and you're gonna run into your Puerto Ricans, right? So the Caribbean has had major influence. So for hip hop to be birthed from this area, then you know that at some point in time, reggae music had to have some influence on it. The other side of it, on what my influences are on music, is that coming out of New York, I grew up in Washington Heights, so it was really a more Dominican driven neighborhood. So it was a lot more Dominican people from the Dominican Republic running around. So I would like to say that even though I grew up in a Jamaican household. I also grew up around a lot of people who were also, first generation Dominicans, or just came over from Dominican Republic. So that Caribbean uh, lifestyle was just surrounding me everywhere I went in the city. Um, and if you my influence of doing music were probably just local people in the neighborhood, man, that had the same dream that I had, of trying to get a record deal at a point in time, and getting heard and getting discovered and getting out the hood. And I could remember, like, one of my first interactions with music was going to visit my father, which was one of my only real memories of knowing him. I noticed he had two turntables and a mixer in his apartment, and I could remember asking my mom, like, what is that? What are those things that he has there? And I was afraid to even speak to him, because at that time he was never really active in my life, so I didn't really have a relationship or understand who he was. But not knowing who he was to me, I was really intrigued by the fact that he had a DJ equipment in his place, and I always remember begging my mom to buy me some DJ equipment, not even knowing what it did or what it was. I begged her to buy it for me, and sadly, my mom passed away when I was 13. But right around my 13th birthday, like maybe a couple months before she passed away, she actually bought me two turntables and a mixer. And I think if you think about the timing, um, you know, losing a parent and then having this DJ equipment around, that was really like what I dived into to get away from all the noise that was going on around me. So, um, a tragic situation for me, but I think out of that tragedy birthed love for the culture of music, and what it represented.
Wow. Okay, man. I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, obviously, it planted a mighty powerful seed in your life. You know what I'm saying? For you to go on and to do music to the level that you have done it. You know what I'm saying?
No, yeah, yeah. I think you know, and I think there's a beauty to be said about it, right? Like, I fell in love with music as a DJ. Then eventually I wanted to get into production, so I started learning how to produce music, or sequencing is what we called it. So, back in the day, before, you would have to get an MPC, sample music, get a beat pad, or even maybe play an instrument. But sequencing, like right around 95, 96, I'm dating myself, but they started introducing these programs called Cubase and Cakewalk, and then eventually would turn into Pro Tools or Logic, that what we have today. But these were sequencing programs that allowed you to take, like, musical instruments, or we call them MIDI, and then create sounds and then create production by sequencing the music together. And I learned how to do that when I was 15 years old. So I fell in love with music from the DJ perspective, then went into production. Then eventually I didn't have anyone to write on my music, so I became my own writer, and then eventually becoming an artist. So, I would like to say, like they say, the rooter to the tutor, man. Like, I learned music from its from the sound of it, to being able to create it, to writing it, to actually being able to market and put it out.
Wow, that's what's up. I mean, that's how it all started in terms of hip hop as we know it with the DJs. That's what's up. That's
Yeah,
what's
for
up.
sure, for sure.
Now, I can ask you, like, when did you actually feel like, okay, I'm gonna do this for a career? You know what I'm saying? I really want to get a deal, or I want to start my own label, or I want to make a living off of this. Like, when did you reach that
Yeah.
point?
When I was in high school, is when I had like we were really just doing music for fun. I had a crew of people around us, and we were all just, I had built a small little studio in my place, and we were all just kind of like, we had, I wouldn't say pipe dreams, but we had dreams of just being in the game. I never really wanted to be the artist. I really just wanted to be the organizer, man. I looked at the likes of people like the Diddy's and the Dame Dashes, and even the Birdmans, and the Master P's at that time, because this was around 99, and you would see these people come out with these crews of rappers, like Cash Money, No Limit, Bad Boy, um, and I think what happened is that having like all of these artists around me and writing, I always contributed my part. And eventually you start contributing your part, and people start coming around and being like, "Yo, you're actually really good at what you're doing. You should pay more attention to being an artist." And I think it took one person sitting me down saying, "Hey, um, we appreciate the fact that you know all there is to know about music, but if you just took one focus and focused on one thing, then maybe let us help you on the other side, and we can see if we can make some things shake with your career." And I always remember that conversation, and that's what it was. Like I think I was around 19 years old, and I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna pursue music full time as an actual artist, and then once that side of my career takes off, then I'll double back and try to do the business side later on.
I could dig it. I can dig it. Now I can ask you about my savior. I guess what was that process like? Now you recorded that album before going to Capitol, or you kind of recorded it at the same time, or
Yeah, 1,000%. That album was a compilation of records that I had way before I signed my record deal. Um, I think what I like to say is that people always credit the first album to being an artist's best album, and I always say that's because the artist had all the time in the world to make that album, right? There's no deadline. Like usually your first album is always like a compilation of things you worked on for years before you got into the business. Um, and that was the Music Is My Savior album. Uh, I think I signed my record deal in 2006. Maybe like a few months after This Is Why I'm Hot had already charted from an independent standpoint, and I submitted the album to them in either January or February of 2007, and then the album was then released in March. So, or March or April. I'm not even sure around the first album time, but yeah, I mean, you know, album was already recorded. A lot of those tracks were tracks that I've done. Some even maybe 3 or 4 years prior to the album being released. So yeah, I mean, definitely had a lot of fun recording that project because that was during my starving artist period.
I can dig it. I can dig it, man. I gotta ask you about the hit single. This is why I'm hot.
Mhm.
If you could just talk about it, what was it like recording that track? Did you know what you had when you made that record? And also, like, I guess I got some questions about the beat because throughout the beat, like, you got like a couple different samples. Was that something
Mhm.
that you wanted to incorporate, or did the beat come like that and you just threw it in there? Or
Yeah. Yeah, so first off, This Is Why I'm Hot was a record that when I originally did it, myself and a friend of mine who's also my manager at the time, his name is Chris Fields, he came to my apartment, he brought a beat CD, and on the beat CD it had these really Southern influence tracks, I like to call them, like Southern style influence records. And me being a New York artist, my first attempt at the records was to listen to these Southern style beats and then over rap them, right? Like add make it as lyrical as I can, because at that time I don't know who was really thinking in that realm of like let's take a Southern beat and just let's be super duper lyrical on it. Um, and that was my approach, and started like writing and penning some stuff to it. And I remember even cracking a joke and saying something like, "Man, I'm overthinking it, right? Like let me just I should just freestyle it." And I remember, the first thing that came out my mouth was, "This is why I'm hot." And when you're an artist and you're in the studio, especially you trying to catch a groove, you usually close your eyes and your mind let your mind go, and if you listen to the lyrics of the hook, it goes, "This is why I'm hot. This is why I'm hot. This is why I'm hot." And it's remnant of a person who's basically just trying to catch the groove of the beat, just to see what he wants to say, and it ended up sticking in my mind. I'm like, yo, that's the hook. Like that's it right there. As simple as it is, that's the hook. I'm hot cause I'm fly. You ain't cause you not. This is why. This is why. This is why I'm hot. So I came up with the concept of the actual lyrics before the production, and I recorded it on one of the beats that my manager at the time had, and another acquaintance of mine, his name is Wes, a friend of my family's, and also he was managing a producer at the time. He came to my apartment where I was living at and was like, "Yo, what you working on?" And I played the record for him. He was like, "Yo, that sounds cool, but give me the acapella. I think that the beat needs to be better." And he actually took the acapella and sent it down to who would then be the producer for a lot of the album. And I was already working with him as well. His name is DJ Blackout. And Blackout was the one, because he's an actual DJ and a producer. He decided that when I did the roll call on all of the areas and the names that I dropped, that he was going to actually incorporate all these different samples. So we sampled Mob Deep Shook One. We sampled E40, Tell Me When to Go. We sampled Jesus Walks, and also Nothing But a G Thing. So four monster records that got sampled in that album, and and it helped. It made it what it was. It made it something that DJs could actually support because they heard all of those samples being flipped throughout the record.
Man, that's crazy. I appreciate you sharing that. That's hip hop history, man. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Um, Let me see now. I guess my next question is okay. So you got the smash single, but it's like, and I guess I could speak for just, I guess, black musicians in general. Like you go back to James Brown, maybe not James Brown in particular, but that era.
Hmm.
Billie Holiday, the Temptations, Marvin Gaye, even present. Like N.W.A., Dr. Dre, even recently like Meek Mills. What is it like with black artists when they sign to a label or they do business with a label where it's like, okay, I sold all these records or I'm doing good, but at the end of the day, you saying that not only, it's like sharecropping almost. Like I don't work
Yeah.
this whole year. Not only are you not gonna pay me, but now you're saying I owe you money. I'm in debt. So, just from your experience, what is the block that keeps us kind of going through this same cycle.
Yeah, I think that there's a few things to touch on when it comes to this, right? So first thing is, um, a lot of it is predatory, right? So if you think about it, and I use that word, and it it's justified. Um, we come from a lineage of people who in this country, especially as it relates to American music, black music in America, a lot of us don't come with a gold spoon in our mouth, or a silver spoon, as they say. So, you know, when you come up with something, and I would like to say that the dope thing about being a creator or a creative person is that you're literally using your mind to create something that doesn't exist, and then you're actually using it to go out and sell and create and generate revenue from it. And there's something to be said about anyone who's an artist that can do that, whether it be painter, artist, rapper, hip hop. It doesn't matter the genre either. You're actually creating something that had no value previous to you being creative, going in and creating value for it. Um, and I think what happens is, if you look at like the economic background of a lot of artists, especially Black American artists, we don't come from rich backgrounds. So so simple. The first part of this is really simple. If if I'm a young black man coming out of an area where I've never had as much as 10 grand in my bank account, and someone says, "Yo, here I can give you $250,000, or even $1 million for some people like myself." That's money you've never even heard of in your life, and you're like, "This is life changing money." Um, but then there's the fine print. Like it's like the cell phone company, like or the car dealerships. You see the price, but then there's like all these little fine prints that you don't realize that this is the way the business operates, and it's predatory. So I think what happens is, um, a lot of it is life changing money up front. We're gonna give this to you, but all of this comes with a price. And I would like to say that I tried my hardest to avoid that scenario. And what a lot of people don't realize is that's why, even like I've been vocal about it in interviews. When I first signed my deal, it wasn't I needed the money right away type of scenario. Like I was independent prior to signing, upstreaming to a major label. That record was put out independently. We spent independent dollars to market it. Um, But the recourse for me was when I did my deal, I did a partnership, a true partnership, which means that after after money is made, the expenses are deducted, and then everyone splits their shares equally. It's not a royalty based situation. I'm not working on a point system, and that was important for me as an artist. That when I got into the business, I had my own entity set up. I was the executive producer of my project. Um, for me, what happened was uh, two things. One, I came at a time where digital downloads were a brand new thing, right? So, what that says is that there was really no language in my contract or in anybody's contract at that time, distinguishing the difference between physical album sales like LP and actual digital sales. And there was one crazy minor sentence in my contract that stated that the label was allowed to take a 20% distribution fee off of anything that they distribute. When digital downloads became a thing, um, the uh, the irony by is that no one digital downloads were the distribution process was never defined. If you think about the way digital downloads are distributed, it's literally, you're literally doing this on a computer. You're hitting the enter button, right? So that's not distribution. In our eyes, that's not distribution. Distribution is when you actually take a physical album, you put it on a truck, and you distribute it out to all the retailers. Like, back then it was Walmart's, Best Buys, whatever musical retail outlets were out there. So that one language and one line in my contract took 7 years to be interpreted by the courts, and they couldn't even really figure out how to interpret it. So we actually won what we call a summary judgment, which is when a judge says, "Okay, cool, we can't interpret the language. We need to take this to court." Um, and this is where it gets interesting. So for a lot of people that don't know, what then happens is you have the power to appeal a decision that a judge makes. So Capitol Records then appealed the decision the judge made to send it to court, and then we had to wait another year and a half or so to get it to an appellate court. And when you go to an appellate court, the process is honestly the worst process in my opinion. And it's not to downgrade the way the justice system is in America, but it took 5 minutes for them to make a decision on a case that lasted me 7 years. And what it was this five different judges basically sitting there reviewing the case as they see fit, and then they make a judgment based on what they see. And it was the most disheartening thing that I've ever been through in my life, because what I realized is that I mean, if I'm an appellate judge and I got 10 cases that I got to try that day, I'm not putting the attention and time into every case. I don't give everything its just deserves, and I'm just looking at it for face value. And I had the ability to appeal the appeal, but at that time, I was exhausted of finances, meaning I had to pay my lawyers, I had to pay for auditing, I had to pay for legal fees, and then I realized that this is done on purpose. When you have he who holds the gold makes the rules. If you have all the money and you fail to pay an artist out, how do they fight you properly in court when they're not getting paid what they gotta get paid out? Whereas my legal bill at some point probably rounded up in the upwards of a $500,000 or more. Um, the what I'm fighting for is less than what I'm paying out. And at some point in time, I had to kind of just tell myself, you know what, I need to move on from the scenario and actually put my focus in other things. So, what I like to tell people is not just as cut and dry as everyone thinks it is, or not signing a good contract, or getting lawyers a triple check. Sometimes it can boil down to just one word and one sentence that can't be interpreted. But the bottom line is that these companies and corporations, they have unlimited resources. They have a lawyer on salary, so the hours that the lawyer spends doesn't matter compared to the person I'm paying. And I learned that it's systematic. So when we go back to like the likes of a James Brown or a Meek Mill or any of these other people, they all really share the same common denominator, which is you could fight it, but it's a really big system to take on by yourself. And some people are going to get the results that they want, and I commend the artists that do. But for artists who are like myself, who are brand new to the game, who just came in, who are still a little bit green to the way things work, the system will eat you up and chew you out, and move on to the next artist within a heartbeat. So yeah, it's important to know that sometimes even if you do everything right, the system sometimes just doesn't work in your favor, and that's what it is.
And I appreciate you sharing that game because it seems like a lot of artists is reluctant to come out and even go into that much detail to let a future generation of artists know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's crazy. Like you say, them contracts, or I mean, it don't even have to be just with music. It could be with anything. The fine print. It could be with medicine. You know what I'm saying? You taking something from your heart, and they tell you it might mess up something else on your body, and you didn't read it, or you might have read it, and like you say, it's left up into interpretation of somebody else who they just trying to get their bill, get their job done and move
yep,
on to the next person, but it's affecting your life,
yeah,
long term. I know you got a lot of moves to make. So maybe I can ask you one more question.
cool.
I was checking online, and they were saying you was into the tech world. Are you still doing that? And if you could talk about that a little bit,
Yeah.
TechCrunch, Recordgram, or anything else that you might be working on or promoting or got going on.
Yeah, I think in life, man, what I realize is that everything we do as people in life, man, sometimes that whatever happens is it either A is a lesson you learn to move into something else, or B is just pushing you to say, hey man, like you got to move into this in this world. And technology was something I've always been interested in. And I remember coming out of this lawsuit. This was like around 2010, 2012, sorry, 2014. I said, yo, I want to really focus on like, something different. And technology became that focus for me. So we actually, myself and a couple of my business partners, we created a startup. We went through that whole ring of learning everything in regard to it. And it was music based startup, so we bootstrapped, which means that we took up money out of our own pockets to actually finance it and see it through. And we ended up going as far as creating the product, getting funded for it, and then eventually winning startup of the year by with TechCrunch Disrupt, which is like a really highly coveted award for most startups. So yeah, I mean it's basically equivalent to winning like a championship in the NBA. So it was my first taste of whatever I put my mind to, I can accomplish it. Since then, I've been really, really heavily involved in the tech space, and I choose to kind of get involved more in the blockchain side, which most people may think of as like cryptocurrency, things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, but I'm more on the blockchain side technology, because what I've realized is that technology allows for transparency. So I work with a lot of companies who are trying to build music on the music side or music verticals within their establishments to kind of help them understand how the music industry works, so that I can play my part in pushing the culture forward and helping for a more transparent music industry. So yeah, I'm involved in the tech side. I wake up, I eat, sleep, and breathe it. More than anything, I actually during the pandemic became a father for the first time. So I spent a lot of my time really just with my son, more than anything. But yeah, I mean, there's so many things that I've ventured into as an entrepreneur that I could be happy enough to say that I'm proud of myself for just not being what they call a one trick pony. I love music and I love the music industry, and I'm still involved in it heavily, but from a different perspective and a different lens.
That's what's up, King. Congratulations. Man, I mean, it's good to hear that. You know what I'm saying? Technology is here, it's the future. But I mean, even if whatever you decide to do, man, you like I say, you affected a lot of people's lives. You know what I'm saying? With the music that you have created, and like you say, you continuing to be hands on with the music, but just behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Which is that's probably even better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So.
And one
Um,
of the things I like to say too, I
hmm
know before we get out of here, is that I'm also very open to trying to as much as I can within reason, right? Like trying to give as much information out to artists as possible. I think that is natural for a lot of people to think that they got it all figured out, and I understand that. But there's also artists out there that are still trying to figure things out. So if you're an artist and you're listening and you're out there, you want to reach out and ask a question, even if it's a simple question, I try to do my best and actually getting back and answering, just to give some insight as to how things work. I don't know everything, but I do know what I've been through and the trials that I've been through. So, I'm always willing to really just spread that knowledge when I can.
Oh yeah, no doubt, man. It's definitely appreciated. Now, what's the best way for them to reach out to you? Are you on social media? You got a website, or should they just catch you in traffic? What's the best way?
I guess either or option works, but I think for now the easiest way usually is probably social media. Most of my handles are at Mims Life. I'm not the biggest on social media when it comes to like, showcasing my life or things that I'm doing, but it's still a great way to reach out and like I said, if it's a question that I can answer, I'll try my hardest to do it. And bigger than that, man. I mean, I'm still a music lover, and I enjoy the actual art art side of it. So I'm always willing to hear some of the new stuff that's coming out. Whoever's up next.
Okay, okay, okay. So yeah, I want to thank the viewers for tuning in. It's been a phenomenal episode, man. Like I say again, thank you for taking out the time to even come on the platform. It's definitely an honor. So until next time, Taye speaks. Peace.
It is.
All right.